Yes, g'day, Mark Kittredge here from Ocean Angler. Today I'd like to talk about JitterBugs. They're probably a very underestimated lure. This one here, it's actually one of a family, and you'll actually see some similar ones around, but what I like about our one in particular is that it's been made to New Zealand situation, to our conditions, to our fish. We've got heavier duty hooks here. They're an owner hook, as you'd expect from our products. Nice and strong, but still quite small, so they're easily set. And as you can see, it comes off on a little, what's called an assist rig. There are two hooks here. It naturally hangs down in a slot at the back, so you're tying it from the top here. Some people do tie them up here, but you do actually run the risk of catching up around the top with the assist rig. And some I've even seen drop it down like that. But I've got to say, even though people have come up to me and said that they caught some really nice fish, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not really made for that. I like that slimmer, streamlined shape that it has here. It's weighted more on the bottom there to go and work properly this way. So I suggest you do that as well. As you can see, I've got them in all different colours here and in different weights. This is quite a small one. It's probably a 40 gram. That's a very good one for use in quite shallow water. And that green and gold has just been a good all-round colour for a long time. Interestingly, there are just days where they do definitely have preferences for different colours, and that green and gold really can turn them on some days. This is definitely one of my two favourites. This is the leopard pink. It's just why I struggled initially to understand why it's a pink, but of course it's actually the assist rig, which is called the pink. And this here, the leopard bit, it's not only a lumo colour, but it's also one that really shows up deep down, and it seems to be particularly effective. As I say, it's one of my two favourite, and in fact just recently we had around about 6 weeks where it definitely was the one of preference for most of the snapper. These lures can be fished right the way down to 60-70 metres, particularly on a nice day where there's not too much wind. If you want a good bycatch of kingfish on a lure, that leopard is really good for kingfish. And we're not just talking about one or two, especially in workup situations. You might get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kingfish, and decent sized ones too, up to about 12, 13 kilos. Everyone knows that orange and gold is great, and obviously we had to have one, and of course it proved to be our #1 seller. Wherever you go into the shops there, when you see JitterBugs, these ones will always be hammered. They'll either be gone or very low in numbers. So I don't blame them. It has actually been a very, very consistent lure for me as well. And yeah, I just love those orange ones. However, if you'd asked me 20 years ago which one I liked, the pink and white is just fantastic. It's a colour that worked well on traditional lures like the Grim Reapers and the lethal lures. And I find in waters up to around about 30 metres, pink and silver like it is here, or pink and white, is still a particularly effective colour. So anytime you do want snapper, that colour is as good as any. And then we have the old bruised banana. This is the latest that's come into our stable. It's one that was originally made for Lure Masters contest, and on the very first day that it was introduced, it got over a 20 pounder, so we were onto a winner. And certainly my own introduction to it, I caught 2 on the very first times. I dropped it down, went to wind up, and there were fish on already. So I knew it was going to be a good one. The way that we work this lure, it's not rocket science at all. It's a lob up ahead of the boat, and the reason why we do a lob ahead of our drifting boat is because we want to have a relatively up and down angle when we work them. We're not working them hard and fast as you might do with some other lures. In this instance, we're teasing them a little bit like a kitten is with the a bit of string or wool. And this is just given a little bit of a lift and drop, lift and drop. As I say, we're not moving it in big movements because it's very easy, especially deep down, for the snapper to lose sight of them. So we're just doing a jig, 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 down, jig, 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 or maybe just a slow lift, that sort of a thing. Try different things, don't just do one thing. You will also find that when it gets too far out behind the boat, you'll actually need to wind in and redeploy. And that means, once again, lobbing up ahead of the boat to give it greater time to get down to the bottom, working it again. As I say, very often your line will go slack respond quickly by lifting, because very often you'll find it's actually a fish that's caused it to go slack. Other times it's just on the way up, you'll just be halfway through and next one, oh, buckled over, or the line will just stay slack, in which case just once again lift or wind and you'll find the fish is on the end. It's not a hard lure to work, and that's why we probably we found it very, very successful, because it is an easy lure. It doesn't take a lot of thinking, but as I said, try little movements, try differences in movements, because very often that's the thing that matters. You can even just try leaving it in the rod holder and just trundling along the bottom, just lifting and dropping, especially if it's not too far behind, because that little kicking up of silt will often get the fish coming in to have a look, because they think that something's feeding, and of course they're going to find your jitterbug there. So there, the jitterbug, as you can see, I've actually tied it on with a little loop knot. I like the loop knot, and in fact you can actually put a little clip on in this case too, but nothing too bulky. We want something that's small and compact, and we need it to be strong too. I've got about a 25-pound trace, I guess. You could have 30-pound as well. Fluorocarbon is best because it takes the most amount of punishment, and I find that that does the job pretty well. Don't keep lifting your fish in on that trace if you can avoid it. What you'll find, especially if you have a loop knot, is that it will slowly wear it away at the bottom, and if you've got just a normal uni knot or a clinch knot, it bites into itself and it actually will break eventually. So on the larger fish it pays to net them. Otherwise, yeah, if it's undersized, sure, lift it over just on the trace, but I wouldn't recommend it for the larger fish. But yeah, the old jitterbug, it's been around a while, but man, it still works just as well as it ever did. I really love it, and it still is very much a part of my usual arsenal when I go out fishing.